hoping this is the week that we start to get all of our supplies coming in so that we can begin to adhere all of the pieces together that we've been working so hard to properly align. And one of the things that we do have, Matt spent his day a few days ago running up to Pennsylvania to get some fiberglass. He picked up some 13-ounce unidirectional, and so what I'm going to do today while we're waiting for the biaxial to come, is that what it's called?
Some of it.
Among other things, is to get the unidirectional cut into the strips, the sizes that we will be applying them in.
This is 290 pounds of unidirectional. It is 190 pounds more than what I actually need. But it was on eBay, was an insane deal. 65 cents a yard, 50 inches long. Crazy, crazy, crazy price. So, but I had to go to Pennsylvania to pick it up. Well worth the trip. And yeah, this is it. So this we need to make into 10 and 8-inch strips. The way that they would do it if this was from some supplier, regular fiberglass supplier, is they'd use a slicing machine and they'd actually cut it for us. We don't have that capabilities, but we do have Jessica. So she is gonna go through and cut them into the strips that we need. They're basically gonna run from hull side to bridge deck side. So they need to be about 20 something feet long, 25 feet long sections, foot long sections. We'll end up running that from side to side, but multiple layers of it. It is a little bit easier to cut this because all the fibers run in along the direction of the roll, so you can use that as kind of a little gauge to make sure that you're not wandering all over the place. You don't need to mark it. You can just follow the line that you're cutting and cut right around there. So it should be fairly easy, but it's a good project. All right. Oh my gosh, I don't even think I can roll this. Oh, it's gonna make it entertaining for you to cut. Yeah.
The sheet of fiberglass rolled out. My job is to make the cuts, and so they're going to be in sections of 250 millimeters, 200 millimeters, and 150 millimeters, and we should be able to do doubles across the section. So as you can see right there, that's my first section, which is 250 millimeters in. From there we come up to 200 millimeters, and then in one more is 150, and since that is only half the sheet there, I should be able to do it one more time to the end. Now that I've cut the strips as far as our width allows here, I'm going to have to try and roll them up to keep them all sectioned and find a way to secure them so that we can take this big roll back here, slide it back out, and roll it out further so that I can get my 24-foot wide sections that I need. Matt was the gopher today, and he got to go to the hardware store and get supplies.
Yeah, we need a piece of PVC pipe to roll this on, which we also need to have some to roll fiberglass when we wet it out. You roll it on there, and then it allows you to easily roll it to the actual surface itself. So if you're using a wet out table, it works really well. Well, we had none, so had to run up to the store real quick and get some, because nothing around here was round. Everything's square for 4x4s and all that kind of stuff.
Did you need me to do this part?
There we go. Alright, that's good. Hopefully they're not overlapping each other. There's a little bit of gap there.
now we've switched the roll around to the other side, and I get to do the process again, and again, and again, and again. After 8 years of the nomadic life, involving crossing oceans in a 34-foot Sabre, refitting an aluminum boat, and then taking that to the Arctic Circle, we're back at it again with a brand new build. This is Matt, and I'm Jessica. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and join us every week as we start our newest project of building a 42-foot catamaran from the ground up.
We're so excited. It is now getting really close to our first fiberglass work. What that's going to be is bonding this bridge deck back together. When they originally molded it, it was all one piece. And when they did that dry fit that we kind of showed some photos before, that was all in one section, so from side to side. To get it in the shipping container, of course, it was too wide and too long to do that, so they had to cut it down the middle. They prepared for that when they did this molding, and there's a recess in here that fits this big long beam, but it also gives us room to be able to fiberglass tape. We have to remove the gel coat, but we'll be able to tape and bond it together on the underside. And they did the same thing on the top side too, where there's a recess that we can put some glass in there and get this all one big structure. Our job today is to level it out fore and aft and side to side. And the biggest thing is going to be getting this big fiberglass beam back into place here. That's going to give us kind of a level point, and then we can kind of adjust from there. So today, moving that back into position, now that we've got the hulls in place, and we'll kind of see how it goes.
Door just shut.
Yeah, I think we need to bring it up. So let's set it down. Okay. Okay. Fun again, round 2. You need to come over.
Now we have the centerpiece back in, so all is looking well from below, at least on the aft end. And now we're going to go up on the top of the deck and see how it looks there. What Matt was just saying a minute ago about us doing the fiberglassing from the top and bottom sides of this bridge deck here, what's going to happen, a lot of you may be asking, how are you going to fiberglass that bottom part if this beam is in place? But what's going to happen is that while that's down there, we're going to go to the top part, glass that in, kind of get it a rigid structure, and then before we can do the bottom, we'll come back down here and remove that. And so then we'll have access to it, but yet the top will already be done, so everything should still stay in place.
The dive bomb bird poop.
Well, please ignore the bird poop. There are some, I have no idea what they are. We haven't actually seen the birds in here. They live on the fans, and they live up in the fan structure up there, and they are dive bombing the boat. So we need to figure out a solution for that. That's going to be a project. But don't worry, we're not going to glass over the top of bird poop, so we'll clean that off first. All right, so it isn't as simple as just making the surface bridge deck flat. Because of where the cockpit is, now the cockpit, of course, is going to get water in it, rain, and so on. We need it to slope out to be able to drain properly. And the bulkhead, the main bulkhead is going to be right about here. The rest of that is cockpit area back here. So everything forward of this needs to be flat from side to side and from forward to back. So when you're walking around, of course, it feels normal. Everything from this point back needs to have a little ridge in the middle, so water will flow out and down out the back of the boat. So that's kind of the tricky part, is getting this two pieces, but the 4.5 to behave a little bit different. And what we're going to do is we'll jack up the sides or lower them as needed. We have that middle structure where it is, so we can kind of adjust it that way. We'll jack up this, and then that area behind Jess, where the other bulkhead is, and where our salon is and our galley is, where we're trying to make that flat, we'll use that center beam and then bring up the sides as needed to get that perfectly flat. So it's going to be a little bit back and forth, up and down the ladder, of course, 100 times, but we'll get that all perfect. Then we'll glass this section in together, and we should have a nice, stiff, rigid structure to remove that beam and glass it from the underside. Almost perfectly level.
It's time to give Jessica power tools. What I'm doing right now is I'm just getting these little wooden spacers ready so that when we do bond, we can screw through each side with wooden screws. So Matt has just gone through with his brand new miter saw and has cut up a stack of wooden boards here. And while he's messing around with other stuff, I get to drill the holes. You've gotta love windy days here on the Chesapeake. Got a little storm system running down the coast, north winds coming at just over 20 knots, and it makes things quite audible in here as far as slamming against the poles. But we've just got the propane turned on. We're gonna get it heated up and hopefully do our first set of bonding.
Yeah, it still needs to come up about a half an inch.
As you can tell, we did spend the last day we were here using all of that time to match up the bridge deck pieces together. But just before leaving, we did get them right, and we could tell because the lines match up from one to another. And since this used to be one piece, once they cut it down the side, of course those lines are gonna match up again. Man, it is windy. But we did start our day a little bit early because it was St. Patrick's Day and we had to enjoy a couple of beers in our beautiful green surroundings. But now we've got the propane running. It's been on for about 30 minutes. Temperature's jumped up to 60, so pretty soon we can start mixing and bonding. Before we could get ourselves into any sticky situations though, Matt went through and tested the wooden cleats we'd be using to keep both sides of the bridge deck together. Then, it was my turn to accurately measure the vinyl ester, as well as add cotton flock and silica to bring it from a consistency of syrup to something more like a peanut butter. And yes, that is the most American term I can use to describe it. We like our peanut butter.
Just like a...
That'll be good.
Well, they're all mixed in.
So what we're doing right now is filling this crack. Not hugely important. It's basically just bonding these pieces of foam together. So the whole reason why we're doing this is we need to be able to glass the surface. And if you notice, it's still flexible enough here that if we tried to actually just lay down glass, we would be, as we're stepping and moving around, we'd be separating it and just, it wouldn't work out well. So the whole idea today is just get these two pieces together, clinch them together, get them so they're even, and then at that point we can come through and actually fill in this trough with fiberglass. That's what's actually going to add the strength to it when we do it on this side, and then we'll do it on the other side. You'll notice also we have our very primitive spacers. They're 3/16 inch. Reason why we're doing that is when this was built, again, it was all one piece and then cut down the middle with the center line with circular saw. The kerf on the blade, so the thickness of the blade, we took off what roughly looks like it's about 3/16 of an inch, so about 3.5 millimeter, right around there, 3 to 4 millimeter. So we're duplicating that with these pieces, so everything fits right where it's supposed to be. Once we get those, this trough kind of filled in, we'll then use these ratchet straps to pull these two pieces together, and these will keep that space so it doesn't squeeze out all of our glue. So I guess that's the idea right now, is just fill this thing in, not real delicate work, real easy stuff, just filling that in, pulling it together, bonding it so it's all one piece, then we can go through and fiberglass hopefully tomorrow.
In case you're wondering, Matt is not about to play Jenga over there. What he's doing is taking little pieces of wood and then using them as holders to keep both of the hulls, or both sides of the bridge deck, where they need to be. So he's got wood screws and we're drilling into the foam just a little bit, and as the vinyl ester starts to dry, that way there won't be any flexing or movement because it's being held together on both sides by those clamps, wood screwed clamps.
Actually turned out great. The two places that we can physically see it, we actually had full penetration too for that bond. And I think what helped out was the fact that we left it spread out, put the stuff in there, kind of shoved it in there, rammed it down, and then closed it up, and it squeezed all the way through. So we did get fine here all the way through, and we got it in the back as well. So I'm guessing that whole length there, it went all the way through to both sides. This is hollow inside, so it's no big deal. And then this is just taped up here to it so it doesn't stick, hopefully, either. Same thing in the back, but should be fine there. It looks like it all turned out well. It's already gelling up. So happy times for the first bond. Get it on the other side.
Are they coming off all right?
Yeah.
Before we could go directly to the glassing portion, Matt first needed to take an orbital sander to even out any rough edges left behind by the resin after it had dried. This step also allowed us to get rid of any contaminants, as well as key the surface to create a good texture for the fiberglass to grip. And after that was a final cleaning with acetone.
Just filling in the holes.
Good.
After we'd gone back and added a thickened epoxy to fill in the holes from our cleats, it was time to glass.
Wet out.
For this job, we used a 12-ounce double bias fiberglass with vinyl ester. After wetting the surface so it didn't resin starve the fiberglass, Matt would then lay the cloth on top and allow the resin from below to begin sinking in before rolling on additional resin over the top. Using a plastic squeegee, he'd run this across the surface to remove any air bubbles as well as extra resin.
Yep, that didn't work.
Nope, Magic Johnson.
Oh, okay. Alright. Alrighty. So, went really well. I have two areas where I have little bubbles that I could not work out. Those were kind of just rough surfaces that I tried fairing in on the second round this morning. So there wasn't like any bumps or anything like that. I just ended up pushing that away because we didn't let it cure or anything like that. We'll have to go out tomorrow and grind out those little patches where there was some air bubbles I just could not get out. No big deal. It just is what it is. So now it's cleanup time, and then we do need to keep the heat on in here for another probably 4 hours. So it's going to be just kind of hanging around, moving in bulkheads and just doing some other kind of general maintenance around here for the rest of the day. I'll show you the air bubble tomorrow that I couldn't get out. It's down there. You can actually probably see it right now, right down in the center line.
See it from space.
You can see it from space. It's a big one. It's right where we had that spacer. And when we removed that, we had to fill that thing back in. And like I said, yeah, it just didn't fill in right. And then when I put wet resin on there, it kind of just seeped itself back through, created an air bubble, and that is it. But we'll show you that tomorrow when I have to grind it back out. But the big thing is, again, we are building a performance boat, a performance catamaran, and weight is everything. So we really have to trust the designers. They went through, they figured out what's needed here. As you probably can see, this trough in here still has a lot of depth. Still has a lot of area that we could be filling with glass. And if this was a monohull, if this was something else, I probably would do that. You would at least be chop strain mat or something would be in there to fill in that space, give you a little bit extra strength. But we can't keep adding that weight. So we've got to follow the actual plan. And the plan is just for 2 layers of double bias cloth going around here, which in this case is 12 ounce. And that's it. I was so tempted. We have extra rolls of glass already pre-cut. So tempted to just roll out another one. But I know how that goes. We roll out another one here. We're going to do more over here and more over there. And eventually we're going to have a boat that weighs an extra 1,000 pounds or whatever it is. And it isn't necessary. It's not stronger. Right underneath here is that big beam that we're going to be bonding in. We have to glass the other side also. It's added weight for no good reason. So this was the first test and we passed. We did not add extra weight.